this documentary is 8 years of my life. Begins with investigating my own rape case because at that time it was quite hard to be investigated, or it was quite taboo to talk about in Japan or even touch the case about sexual violence. So as a journalist, I decided to cover the story, and this is the journey of that. Well, I don't know if what kind of image you have towards Japan, you know, where the technology and everything is, you know, quite advanced. But when it comes to gender issue, women's rights, it's quite behind. And for instance, there is this ranking by World Economist Forum. I think this year we ranked 118th for the gender gap ranking among over 160 countries. So, you know, we're quite backwards. I'm sure Switzerland is much higher up. But of course, you know, I guess sexual violence, this issue is everywhere. It's very universal, and it's not just Japan. But when I encounter this violence, at that time we had a 110 years old rape law. So of course, you know, 110 years ago, women didn't have voting rights to decide what, to define what rape is. So the question is why we haven't changed the law so long. Is because we don't really openly talk about sexual violence, and we kind of put stigma around it. So it was a challenge to talk about it and to make this film. Growing up in Tokyo, I always had to take train to commute, and especially, this is something I share among my friends and, you know, my sisters, but when we get on the train, especially when we were wearing school uniform, we were always targeted to be groped. And somehow, you know, it became the daily routine. And it sounds weird, but even we go to police, it's really rare to, you know, find a solution or seek for the help. So we kind of get used to it. We never get used to it, but like every day when we reach to the school before the morning class, we always share today what happened. Yeah, the man cut my skirt, jerked off on my skirt, so many stories. And so it's somehow really embedded in our society. The violence is somehow normalized. But that's not only that. I think the reason why it's normalized is that in our legal system, it's not really the crime. Groping isn't really a crime, or the rape isn't really a crime, because rape, you have to prove how much you've been threatened or violated from the victim's side. So it's not really about consent. And for that, it's really hard to define. And I think deep down, that's one of the reasons why it's super hard to talk about or to point it out, the problem. I'm sure each country has the, you know, box. If you are a woman, if you're a man, if you're someone, then, you know, you should shape like that, or, you know, be like that. I can talk from the point of language, for instance. Like, I don't think I could express my feeling, emotion, especially anger, in Japanese. And we have certain way to speak to men or, you know, older person. So it makes us feel small. And so now I'm like trying to say that I'm never going to use this, you know, way of speaking, but it's what you're asked for. And when I was assaulted, I told the perpetrator, well, I told the you know, offender, the man, please stop. やめてください. And why? Why did I say please? Just because it's somehow, you know, in my mind, I never speak to him in different way. So I had to say, fuck off. I had to change my mind. And I realized that I in Japanese language, I don't have the liberty to use or to express my feelings or just simply say fuck off. We don't have that. So I think that says a lot. I was struggling because I could clearly see that やめてください, please stop wouldn't help. So it was just like, you know, instant protection from my, you know, without thinking. But I just slowly discovered it's deeply rooting to our everyday life, how we behave, how we, the language we used. And so now I am sometimes gather my friends and we kind of, when we drink, we kind of practice how to say fuck off. We just have to start using new words. And I guess to realize that you have to be outside, you have to experience life outside of Japan. And so that, I think I was privileged to know. If the law would change, I think that would mirror to our life, but also education. I don't remember getting any sex education around consent, and that's really important, I believe. But also educate, you know, who will never go back to school, you know, as adults, how we communicate about consent, how we talk about consent, how we teach our kids consent. So that's a huge, I think, challenge to do. I think generally speaking, we just have to open the space or, you know, start this, you know, try to start this communication around sexual violence. And I really hope this film would create that. But today, you know, it's 2024, October, we still don't have any distribution plan yet in Japan. So hopefully, you know, by releasing this film, starting from Switzerland, we really hope that that would happen. So we can, you know, screen this film and let people start thinking, brainstorm, and talk about it.
先月29日、東京霞が関の司法記者クラブで一人の女性が記者会見をしました。会見を開いた女性には励ましの声がある一方、会見時の服装など事件と無関係の批判も見られます。強姦罪は制定当時、家父長制度を前提とし、夫に従属する妻の保護を目的としたと言われています。本改正案においても、強姦は不同意だけでは成立をせず、被害者の公共を著しく困難ならしめる程度の暴行または脅迫を用いることが要件とされる、これまでの考え方が維持されてきました。
Japan is a very unique place. It's not like we have a crystal clear censorship, but I feel like people self-censor something when they think maybe that would be a bit problematic. And I think maybe that came down to the island culture, you know. You don't want to have any change, you just kind of want to keep harmonious way, so not to discuss or not to debate about something else. I feel like we tend to avoid debate. So, but you know, if we don't talk about it, we'll never, update something, get it better. So I'm ready, and I hope people are ready. It's the documentation of 8 years of my life, and it happens. Everyday life happens, and the court case went on so many years. So I guess we just didn't have a moment to censor ourselves. We just had to document everything what was happening that time. But the censor, I think censor part happens when in the editing room. So that's when we had many discussion what to put in. Some part I didn't want to put in, but then later I had to tell myself, I have to be vulnerable. I have to face to what was happening that time and be honest about it. And so I think in the editing room, we I try my best to not self-censor. There were 4 or 5 camera person behind, but doesn't mean that we had always 4 or 5 people around it. It was all of them are my friends. So it wasn't like a camera setup. We never had a sound man because we just didn't know what's gonna happen today or next day. So we just have to film with what's available. So in the end, we had over 400 hours of footage. So it was quite a lot to edit with, but I had an amazing editor who dealt with a lot of the footage, which I wish I didn't have to see everything. So she took over, and I think she made it down to 100 hours and then 10 hours, and that was when I jumped in to watch. In the beginning, I didn't want to put anything that's me talking to the camera because I felt like, I'm dialecting, I'm in it, it's too much. So I took all that cut out. And what I did at that time was to went through all my old diaries and try to remember where I was, what I was looking at. So I took my little camera to start filming. So I thought I could just, place that part. Because also we had so many secret audio or only audio, and with some footage we didn't have any, some audio we didn't have any visual, so I wanted, find a way to do that. So I was thinking more abstract way of storytelling, like a Chris Markle essay style, but then realized that it's not gonna work out. We have to use the real voice from that time, because from today I cannot voice over what I was thinking in 2017, 18, and I felt like that's not right thing to do. So in the end, I just decided to really focus on what we have from that time, trying to do everything chronologically, but also place it with what I filmed today, what I remember, what I was seeing visually, but not by audio or narration. Of course, my editor cut it down to 10 hours, but doesn't mean that we forget about all the footage. So we revisit so many hours of footage, and for me, some part of the footage I didn't remember that happened. I think it's very natural way of trauma coping, so you forget so many things. So it was revisiting, revealing to myself what I wish I could forget about. So it was hardcore therapy session, like exposure therapy session, I would say. But once I had the power to reconstruct the story, that was really empowering. When I had that straight, I felt that I was so empowered that I felt that I could tell my own story, and this is my own story. And that, I feel like, when we deal with some difficult story, traumatic story, it's often told by a third person. And it's not necessarily the person in the story wanted how they want to tell. So now, after I've done this, I'm telling everyone if they have trauma, maybe they would try to make a film, because it helps how you think about it, how you construct, and it's a really hard way, but I think it also benefits others as well. I get up and down, and I can say that over years, that down became a little shallower and shallower, but of course I still have up and down. And I don't recommend it, but yeah, sometimes I go out drinking with my friend, which is not totally recommended. My therapist, so like you see in the film, I always had a box wine in my fridge waiting for me when I wanted wind down. So there are so many coping systems I did, but I feel like when I decided to make a film, I met amazing teammate. Before, working as a journalist, it was more independent, more isolating work, like writing book as well. making a film, it takes a village. So I felt like I could meet people that I could fight together with. Of course, you know, not just making a film, but towards this issue, because most of my team member has to feel that way to really continue complete whole journey. So that was really helpful. So yeah, that's another part of I'm so happy that I made into a film. After I spoke out about my sexual violence, you know, experience to public, I did lose many friends, but I had that friends that have always stayed with me. But doesn't mean that it was easy for us. And I still remember when I wrote my book, memoir, my editor said that she's always working in nonfiction, and you usually lose about 10 people around you when you write about your own story, because not everyone want to reveal their, life or part of it, and that was true. But doesn't mean that it took some time to, re-engage and make up together. In the end of the day, I think we all don't want to accept the violence and harassment, but when it comes down to our private life, it's hard. So yeah, we had quite difficult time among our friends, and I feel sorry that I'm always causing all these, waves, but that made us bound, stronger as well, I guess. The book was really mainly only focusing on investigating part as a journalist, so I took out all the emotion away from the book. But then I realized that I am at the same time not just as a journalist. This happened to me, and of course I understand in my head, but I couldn't really put into words. And that was the moment I felt like this is something I need to face and I need to express during this filmmaking. So when I revisited my diaries and when I was editing this film, I also started writing essay. It was the way of practicing how I put out the words, emotions, what I was thinking into words. Like I said, in Japanese language, I felt like I never done it somehow. So yeah, it was a challenge.
すみません、お伺いしたいんですけれども、そちらに盗聴器発見器みたいなのって置いてありますか？はい、はい、お願いいたします。はい。見せて。
全部鳴るんだけど。Or is it my radio mic, maybe? I'm the one. Hello.
Let's try again.
Sorry.
大丈夫？Still working. かりません。すごい重要な、聞かれてもまずい話をするときはトイレに行けばいいんじゃない？
When I was using wiretap detector-ish thing device, it was about a bit before me publishing my book, and a bit before snap erection was happening. So many things was happening around us. The society was changing, and I did feel unsafe. I did feel something was around us. But right now, I could maybe just laugh about it, you know? Maybe I was too paranoid, but that time, for me, I was serious. And we did find something, so it was scary. But at the end of the day, I don't have anything to hide, so I felt like they can, if they want to listen or take any information, you know, here I am and nothing to hide about, so. You know, it took 4 years, so I'm sure I was struggling. Now I'm like, I forget everything, and yes, I made it, but yes. So it was tricky and challenging. How could I tell my own story? And when I see myself, how can I edit my story? So at some point, I want to interview the guy, Yamaguchi. I felt like that's not fair, that it's only one-sided story. So there are many moments also, like as a journalistic point of view, I felt like this is sort of not okay to do this. But in the end of the day, it is a film and I have more freedom. So to cross the line as a journalist was maybe, I guess that was most challenging part that I had to do. Yeah, it was whole ping-pong process. And the great thing about this filmmaking for us was that we had no budget, no money coming from anywhere, so we had no pressure. So, and my team understood that I needed that time to do, you know, back and forth ping-pong set, because I think if we're just selected person who just, you know, focusing on finishing the film, I don't think we could have taken so much time let me to do all this, you know, winding road and get lost and come back and so on. So we only got an amazing budget to finish the film when we were in editing room, so that when we start, you know, putting all together, so that really helped, I think. I get this question a lot, you know, and especially more towards like what's next for you, how you're going to change the law, but I guess that's not my job. My job is telling story, and now you saw it, you got it, and I'm sure there are many possibility and idea that, you know, whoever catch it can do from where they are standing from, and I think that's beyond my imagination. And like we all know, it's such a universal issue, violence, speaking up, breaking the norm. So I want to ask, what's in your black box? How do we open it?